All right, Dwayne, here we go. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and I'm joined by my co host, the Libra icon, Dwayne. What's going on, Dwayne?
It was a great weekend, especially in the world of football.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
yeah, man. Glad that you could join me once again for Know the Score. Know the Score is being brought to you by CSPN. You can find the CSPN and Know the Score on the web at www.cspn.us. So we'll get right into it. We haven't had a couple of shows in a while here since the playoffs started. So we're right here in the midst coming into Championship Sunday. All of the flim flam has been, weeded through. The Cowboys got beat. So everything is right with the playoff picture. So we get to the NFC
In
game.
your world, yes.
No, nothing,
Yes.
nothing's right in my world, sir. Bruce Allen is still in charge of things. Nothing is right. But
Uh,
but
uh,
we're gonna talk about somebody who came from my world, Mr. Sean McVay and his Rams advancing to the Super Bowl as they defeated the Saints in the Superdome, 26-23 in overtime.
hmm
Of course, the myth pass interference is what everybody's gonna lead to, and that's the big talking point. And that they want to make a major shift in what can be reviewed. Can pass interference finally be a reviewable call in the NFL? So, Dwayne, I'm not gonna hold you back. I'm gonna let you have your chance here to espouse your thoughts on the Rams going into the Superdome and defeating the Saints and earning a trip to the Super Bowl.
this was a glorious day for me, for obvious reasons. But let's get to the elephant in the room. Was it pass interference? Absolutely. Very, very egregious penalty. Very blatant. But who's to say if the Saints would have converted? Who's to say? I mean, it'll be one of the biggest what is. Would they have converted? Possibly. But can we also say that Drew Brees was not really all that great in the late stages of the game? I thought when it was 13-0, it was going to be the Saints being the juggernaut that they are. But the Rams fought back valiantly to make it a game. The defense really held out. I think I said it in to someone out at my job. I was like, Talib did not play in that first game. I think he was a difference maker in the second game. I think that with the full arsenal, I mean, you had C.J. Anderson. That was a new dynamic for the Saints defense to deal with. And it was pretty much one of those things where, when it first looked like everything was lining up, but there were missed penalties on both sides of the spectrum. There's missed penalties from the Rams. There's missed penalties from the Saints. I mean, the pass interference was very blatant. The Rams knew there was pass interference, but they the NFC champs. So it wasn't called. You play on, and you can make all the diss songs that you want to NFL referees. You can ask for a redo of the game in the middle of Super Bowl week, which would be very, very stupid because that gives your team 1 week of rest. The game is the game. I mean, things happen. You know, should it be? Is it a penalty? Yes, penalties haven't been reviewed. They should not be reviewed at all. I think it's one of those things where you just gotta move. You gotta move onward and forward, and it's a hard pill to swallow. And it's something that if you're not over it, if you're never gonna get over it, how you gonna move forward? So tough break for the Saints. Do I have any sympathy for their fans? I frankly do not. I understand the frustration, but I know if it was the other way around, and if it was the Panthers, I would probably be in the same boat, and I know they would be gloating that the Panthers are out. So it is what it is. Just have to go from there and see what happens.
The NFC South is very ruthless when it comes to laying it in and torturing each other. I guess it comes from being all the teams from the old NFC West and getting beat up by the 49ers for all these years made everybody like the same.
Mm-hmm. I
I don't
think
know.
it is. I think it's one. You got that. You do have that NFC West mentality. I mean, when the Panthers came in, of course they were paired with the Saints and Rams and Niners and um, the Falcons, and of course Charlotte and Atlanta is 3 hours away from each other on Interstate 85, so you got the proximity there. And Falcons and Saints have been rivals from the time the Saints entered the league, and this was like that was like really the first true Southern rivalry in the NFL was the Falcons and the Saints. I mean, it's not like the level of Cowboys and Redskins or the NFC East kind of rivalries, but I think it's very underrated. I think probably the only thing that would have entertained me about the Saints going to Super Bowl is how much flack they would have gave Falcons fans, and that's what makes everything more entertaining. I mean, Carolina, Tampa Bay, that's probably the more fierce of the two of the other, probably the second fiercest rivalry in the division, and then probably Panthers, Falcons. You really don't look at Tampa Bay because I don't think they didn't have the history till 2002, um, but yeah, it's pretty. Their fans are ruthless towards one another. I mean, even at the end, I mean, for at least one day out the week, and anytime it's a talking point, um, it's one of those things where you just have to grin and bear what happens, and also with the that kind of rivalry, it's one of those things where you know you a lot of the fans in this fan base in this division they could dish it out, but it's hard for them to take it. Especially Saints fans. I think the Saints are the worst when it comes to getting. They could slander all they want, the fans slander every other team, but when the when I guess the tables are turning, they're probably the most sensitive of them all, and I'll go on the record of saying that.
My assessment of the game comes down to what I always say about football, especially in the bigger the games against the tougher defenses. The more red zone field goals you kick, the less chances you have to win the game. The Saints had a very good chance to get up, 14-0 in this game and really dictate the pace to the Rams. But they didn't. The Rams got that fake field goal. They kind of got some momentum going. And then from then on, they just chipped away. And Jared Goff really came through on a big stage in front of the country. And I think a lot of people who doubted him or maybe had questions about him really got their eyes open to him because Todd Gurley was not good in this game. And I don't know if he benched himself or he got benched by McVay, but he really wasn't a factor after he scored this, that short touchdown run that he had. He was pretty much ineffective.
And he'll be the first one to say that he sucked. And,
right.
And so that definitely was something that was pretty alarming, so.
Right. When I watch the Rams and I watch because I know McVay, I'm very familiar with what he likes to do, his aggressiveness. When I watch Goff play, he's just an upgraded version of Kirk Cousins. He can move out of the pocket. He'll scramble when he has to. He's not looking to, but if he can get a spot in there where he can get a quick scramble up there, he'll do it. But the thing that he has that Kirk Cousins didn't have is just touch on the deep ball where if it's there, he doesn't really miss it. And that really separates him, I think, from where Kirk Cousins was in McVay's offense, where Kirk Cousins was really good intermediate throws, really good against the blitzes, but not really good in getting the deep shots and getting those home run balls, getting, you're at the 35 and they're coming and you get that one-on-one, to get that touchdown. That's, a touchdown and not a red zone field goal that ends up getting you beat in the fourth quarter. And I think that Goff did a lot of good things. And I just see when I watch him, like, man, he's like, what Kirk Cousins, what you would want Kirk Cousins to be physically and as far as what he can produce in the game. So, kudos to Jared Goff. He definitely proven to everybody that he wasn't a bust, that Jeff Fisher was. And I'm very proud for him.
Right.
And bittersweet when it comes to watching McVay do this, because if my front office had any foresight, any type of guidance, they would have understood that let's keep this dude and fire Jay Gruden and make this dude our head coach. Because in some form or fashion, this could have been the Washington football team with this type of turnaround. They don't have the talent as far as the skill positions and everything, but I think that the way that this dude coaches and his philosophy and how young he is, being that the league is young too, he can talk to the players and reach the players and get those guys to understand what he's trying to do. That maybe a guy that's in his late 40s, almost 50 can't.
Right.
And so go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I was gonna say, do you think also that the Rams have better receivers than the Washington football team?
Yeah. Everything is it's the exact same setup that Mike Martz walked into as being the former offensive coordinator of the Washington football team, going to the Rams, being their offensive coordinator with Dick Vermeil, and then ultimately becoming the coach. Yeah, they have far better skill position players. And they're built differently because in the NFC East, it's more of a, run the football defense. You don't really try to be explosive. You just try to capitalize when you can. It's not really known for high scoring offenses in the NFC East. It's known for, grinding it out, tough defense type. But if you can integrate the things that, the flashes sometimes that the Washington football team would display with Martz, with North Turner and Jay Gruden, you get those guys who's producing that and then give them real talent. It's just so bittersweet to watch.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy for Goff. Again, like I said, because, everybody was down on him after his first year. Everybody thought last year was a mirage. And in the game that they were down and, with all the marbles and big time eyes, on it, he came through and McVay came through. So good for them. And, Sean Payton, I don't know, man. He could have bleeded the clock out even after they didn't, after they got the long pass and they got down there within the red zone.
I agree.
He threw a pass that stopped the clock. They ran it that, got some negative yards. And then you had a third down throw that was complete. It's not like they really wasted any time to try to, compromise the Rams. I mean, the Rams had timeouts, but I mean, let's try to squeeze this for all it's worth. So, there's times to beat the plays can be made to win the game early in the first quarter. And I just think those two red zone field goals to make it 6-0 instead of 14-0 was the difference. If they score a touchdown there, I don't think the Rams can overcome that 14-0 deficit.
Yeah. Right.
So, speaking of trying to overcome a 14-0 deficit, the Kansas City Chiefs, the team with the most explosive offense in NFL, they win the coin toss at home, and they defer to the New England Patriots, who promptly chew up 9 minutes of the first quarter in that drive, that very first drive of the game, with a touchdown, and proceed to stifle the Chiefs for the whole first half. I think the Chiefs had like 35 yards of offense. It's 14-0 as the Patriots score a late touchdown in the second quarter. And it is like, oh man, this is not the formula the Chiefs needed to get out to try to win this football game. They came out in the second half, and Patrick Mahomes, they lit it up. They went straight down the field, like 4 plays, scored a touchdown, and it was on. And the game was on from there, and we got one of the best AFC Championship games in recent memory. The Patriots, though, in overtime, they win it 37-31. Tom Brady wins the toss. The Patriots win the toss. Tom Brady converts 3 3rd-and-10s in overtime, and they score a touchdown, and it's a walk-off. Rex Burkhead. So, Dwayne, Tom Brady does it again. 9th Super Bowl. Him and Bill Belichick together.
It's amazing. I mean, whether or not, if you could take the blinders of the fandom, I mean, are we sick of the Patriots? Probably, most likely, yes. But you and I were talking before the show how we need to appreciate this talent, and whether or not it's a system or individual talent, or it's a combination of the two. And when you have a system, when you have the right people in the system, and you execute the plans in the system is successful. And how many times have we tried to see somebody dethrone this team? Plenty. But you might as well, until otherwise, you might as well just pencil New England as the AFC representative, at least until this era is over. You know, there's a generation of Boston fans that don't know that the Patriots were a bad team. I don't know what they're going to do once this era is over. So it's very, very. It's something like you said earlier before the show. We gotta appreciate what we have here, and it's just something that we just gotta continue to enjoy and keep going forward. Now, what I would say about the Chiefs, you know, there's a bright future definitely ahead of them, and it's something that we gotta just continue to watch this team grow, watch this team progress, and I think that it's going to be definitely something fun and something special to watch. So.
I came to this conclusion after they came back and beat the Seahawks. It's something that Larry Bird said about Magic Johnson after he hit that game-winning shot in the Boston Garden, the baby hook over McKellen Parrish. He's just the best I've ever seen. And I grew up watching Joe Montana and John Elway, and I thought that, man, you know, those guys got the ball in the last 2 minutes. You know, you're done for. Go ahead and get your blindfold and your cigarette. But Tom Brady's even taken that to an even higher level, man. And Super Bowls and championship games, regular season games. It's just like, you know, if this dude has any amount of time more than, 10 seconds and he's getting the kickoff, you can't feel safe. And Belichick, with the way that they don't have a system, he doesn't marry himself to anything but winning the game that's ahead. I don't know if I've ever told the story on this before, but there is a guy that I met who played in the league, and he said, I was a scrub. I was, backup, third string at best. Somebody got hurt, maybe I could move up. And he said, I played for the Bills and I played for the Jets. And I said, oh, man, that's cool. I said, who, was the best coach that you play for? Thinking Marv Levy, Bill Parcells. He goes, Bill Belichick. He goes, I was the defensive back. Bill Belichick was my, defensive back coach, defensive coordinator. And he was like, man, this dude was just so smart. And he was like, I'm going to tell you how smart he was. He was like, we practice all week for the Colts. We're in the playoffs. He's like, we're getting ready to play the Colts. He's like, we practice for Peyton Manning all week. We have this game plan. We're ready to go. He's like, Peyton Manning comes out. He goes right down the field on us. Scores a touchdown. He said he calls the whole defense over to the sideline. Bill Belichick does as the defense coordinator. He tells them, forget everything that we did all week. He draws like 4 coverages up and says, these are the only 4 coverages we're going to play for the rest of this game. And the dude was like, they didn't score any more that game. And he said that's why Bill Belichick was the best coach that he'd ever played for.
Wow.
Yeah, and that just goes to the fact that they just do what they need to do to win that game. So if it calls for running the ball heavy and Rob Gronkowski's going to block all game or 3/4 of the game, then that's what they do. And Rob Gronkowski's cool with it, and they eat running the ball. Then they need it in the 4th quarter to come back, and you don't think they got the explosive receivers to do it. He finds Edelman somehow over and over and over again. Gets Hogan involved, and then, sprinkles in a Gronk here and there. It's just amazing watching it develop and hearing Tony Romo call it at the same time. It was just amazing to watch it work out the way that it did. Yeah. And unfortunately for the Chiefs, which led to news that happened today, we all knew that if it came down to their defense having to be on the field to preserve a moment like this, that it would probably not work out for them.
Oh, yeah. That was the main concern about the Chiefs coming into the playoffs anyway, was their defense. And even amongst their fans, they even said that we're kind of concerned about our team's defense because it hasn't been as great as it was as of late. So yeah, definitely putting that onus on the defense with the game on the line, definitely not an ideal situation.
So today, Chiefs defensive coordinator Bob Sutton has been let go. So there's a lot of speculation that maybe Rex Ryan could maybe be the lead candidate to replace Bob Sutton. Rex Ryan, you say what you want to say about him as a head coach. As a defensive coordinator, he's like Wade Phillips. That's the job that he's probably most suited for in the NFL, and he's damn good. And they got a lot of talent over there. They just need to be coached up a little bit better. And if they can pair a bona fide defense with that offense, then, lights out could be a possibility. I think that the biggest thing that basically won this game for the Patriots was they just started out 14-0. I think if it starts out the other way, with the Chiefs start out 14-0, and they can maybe try to, harass Tom Brady a little bit more, they can get aggressive and afford to maybe, blitz him a little bit more and, be a little bit more reckless in the secondary and kind of come after him and put a lot of pressure on him. I think the Chiefs may run away with that game. But with the Patriots being able to take I don't understand why the Chiefs did not take the ball. But that drive in the very first drive that took all the first quarter basically set the tone for the game, and the Chiefs were fighting uphill from there, and they just ran out of time, and their defense ran out of gas.
Agreed. Yeah, I was just like, I was really kind of just, when I was looking at the game, between the and also we witnessed the Andy Reid School of Clock Management. There's a lot of bad.
Well, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. He did take a timeout with like 45 seconds to go, which actually kind of left them enough time to go. I mean, they did a great job of getting that field goal to send it into overtime with, like 35 seconds to go. So, it wasn't too bad. It didn't cost them too much this time.
Yeah, but
the thing you may say is right there once the Patriots got into the red zone, or it was apparent that the Chiefs defense wasn't going to stop them, he could have maybe took a timeout or two on defense just to kind of give his guys a rest, and maybe they could break the momentum, kind of like a college basketball coach does. But other than that, I wouldn't kill it. This wasn't the most egregious clock management for Andy Reid that he's been a part of.
All right. I can agree with that. I can do that.
So, the playoffs have been, pretty entertaining. Dwayne, before we move off of the playoffs and get into the coaching carousel, um, kind of give me your biggest surprises, whether it was a disappointment or, a shock of the playoffs, of this playoff season that comes to mind.
Well, I would say probably the biggest shock was probably Alshon Jeffrey, the ball going through his hands in the divisional playoff. Uh, I definitely had the Eagles had the Saints on the ropes, and Jeffrey was really, really sure-handed out of all the times to have a drop. He let the ball go through his hands right into Marshawn Lattimore's hands, and they took it the other way. That was probably the biggest surprise of them all. Um, for me, I would say I would probably say the biggest shock for me, divisional weekend. Um, I was definitely disappointed in the Chargers showing in the divisional playoff against the Patriots, and I kind of figured everything that the Ravens did not do, the Patriots pretty much were like, okay, we're gonna do this, and they went on ahead and picked LAC apart. And probably during wild card weekend, of course, the missed field goal from Cody Parkey, the city of Chicago, the Bears mascot, pretty much summing up everybody's reaction in the city of Chicago after it double doinked off the upright and crossbar. But we did learn it was tipped at the end, like a few hours after the game was over. And that was probably the best game of the wild card weekend because all the other ones were pretty much well in hand. And then finally, someone in the AFC South really needs to take the throne from the Houston Texans, whether it's the Colts, Titans, or Jaguars. Reason being that the Texans, every time they get a home playoff game, they almost most likely throw it away. Um, I don't know if it's the execution or the game planning, but every time the Texans get the Saturday afternoon wild card game, and every Saturday afternoon they are ended up going home.
Yeah, that was going to be my biggest thing that I pointed out was just the Texans. I just did not expect them to flame out the way that they did. Now, losing a playoff game happens, but I mean, they totally were just, that first half. I mean, Indianapolis just jumped on them and they never seemed to recover. The defense, never seemed to really recover. Seems like the Colts kind of pulled the parachute after they got the 21-0 lead and they just coasted on in. But Deshaun Watson didn't look dynamic. Hopkins a little banged up. They had lost Demaryius Thomas, and Will Fuller. So they were kind of down some threats on the outside, but just their performance in the regular season, they won so many games in a row, and it just looked like they were trending to be something different than their playoff history. But your history is your history, and it is that for a reason. So.
Yeah, definitely.
This is Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente. I'm joined by my co-host, the Libra icon, Dwayne, and you can find Know the Score on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Spotify, and you can also check us out on the CSPN YouTube page. So, Dwayne, of course, with the football season, regular season coming to an end and the playoffs beginning, there is the coaching carousel that begins to spin. We had 8 teams decide that they were going to separate themselves from their current coaching situations, and all 8 positions are now filled. The Packers were the first to get on the board. They named former Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur head coach. So I know that you have a lot of intimate knowledge of Titans and what their offense looked like this year. Matt LaFleur, I think it was his second year as offensive coordinator. Or maybe his first, but I know that
I think it was his first.
Right. I know that he's a very new coach to the Titans, and now he's former coach on the Washington football team staff with Sean McVay. You'll understand the theme here coming up very shortly. But what do you think about Matt LaFleur taking over as the head coach of the Packers? Packers moving on from Mike McCarthy, and he gets a chance to work with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, with Matt LaFleur and the things that he was able to do with Marcus Mariota, I think the best thing about this situation for Mr. LaFleur is that he's going to do some unique things. I think once the Packers get a running back that they can rely on, aside from Aaron Rodgers, so they'll put all of the onus on Aaron. I think that this is going to be a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with once again. He's got some innovation there. He does a great job at doing what he needs to do to get his team prepared. Working with a guy like Marcus Mariota, of course, who has a Marcus Mariota work with at this point, because the next offense coordinator is going to be his fifth in 5 years. But he's going to do some pretty great things. I can't wait to see what happens when he gets to the team and see what plans he has. But it's going to be very, very interesting. It's a great hire. I was not as expected, probably because of the fact that he was a coordinator for not too long, but apparently the Packers were impressed enough with the fact that Mariota is improvement, his progress, and able to and his play calling and the execution of the plays. So he was wild enough, and get an offensive minded coach, and hopefully he gets a good defensive coaching staff to where that the defense improves, because Aaron Rodgers, he's getting up there, and we also need to make sure that A, he's protected, and B, he's got a defense that will help him out a lot more.
Cliff Kingsbury, we thought he was going to be the offensive coordinator for the USC Trojans out in Hollywood and maybe become the head coach if things didn't work out for Coach Helton out there. But instead, he gets released, doesn't want the job because the Arizona Cardinals had an offer waiting for him. And now Cliff Kingsbury is going to be the coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and he will inherit the number 1 pick in the upcoming NFL draft.
This was probably one of the shock hires. I mean, we already had a shock firing with the firing of Steve Wilkes. I mean, the guy didn't even get a chance to really do anything for the team, and I guess for Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, good for him. He goes to the NFL. He gets a quarterback that the Cardinals drafted, put their faith in Josh Rosen. If he might have Larry Fitzgerald for one more year. So that's all depending on if Larry Fitzgerald decides to come back. He does have Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk went to Texas Tech. So if he did go to Texas Tech, that's actually a good thing for both Kingsbury and Kirk, because Kirk knows what Kingsbury's capable of. I guess with the success of Patrick Mahomes and the air raid style, and then Baker Mayfield also with the similar style, the Cardinals feel like, hey, we can bring in the guy who knows about this stuff and who can make our quarterback this way. Do I think it's going to work? I'm not confident about it. I guess it just depends on who the Cardinals pick. Do they shore up their offensive line? Do they get another playmaker? Do they get somebody they got David Johnson. Can David Johnson get back on track because he was not himself. I don't know if it was because of the coaching of the staff last year or individual performance. We'll just have to see. I'm not a fan of it, but it's just one of those things where we just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm gonna run down the rest of these, and then you can kind of voice your opinion about which other hire sticks out to you. We have Bruce Arians going to the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Broncos, they hired former Bears defensive coordinator Vic Fangio to be their new head coach. The Browns promoted offensive coordinator Freddie Kitchens to head coach. Adam Gase, the former Dolphins coach, is named the coach of the Jets. And the Dolphins and the Bengals reportedly are set to hire assistant coaches who are still currently residing in the playoffs, as the Dolphins are expected to hire the Patriots assistant coach and defensive coordinator Brian Flores, and the Bengals are expected to name the Rams quarterback coach Zach Taylor as their next head coach.
Well, so yeah, probably the Brian Flores probably sticks out to me only because I think he was one of probably the only minority candidate hired this year, if I'm not mistaken.
He was correctly, sir.
Yeah, so considering all the minority coaches that got fired this past season and only one getting hired this season, does kind of raise an eyebrow a little bit. Like I said, the Cardinals showed why they're the Cardinals once again after a few solid good years. I think they feel like they missed the mark on Steve Wilkes. Also, the Bruce Arians hire stands out. He's going to have a lot of work to do fixing Jameis Winston, trying to make him a quarterback that is on the level of Breeze, Ryan, and Newton.
If Bruce Arians can get Jameis Winston to go from it's like 24 interceptions, if he can get him to go from like 24 interceptions to like 16, the Bucks might make the playoffs next year.
Really. Right, exactly. And my whole thing is they might have a chance now with Bruce Arians as a head coach. I don't think Bruce Arians has done a bad job anywhere he's been. I mean, look at what he did filling in for Pagano in Indy. And then look what he did with the Cardinals for the tenure he was there. It's probably a reason why he left Arizona because of
Carson Palmer retired, and he didn't want to go through what was about to happen, which was you're going to have to get a young quarterback and, go through that whole thing. He didn't want to do that.
Exactly. I mean, he was willing to do it with the Browns and develop Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield's a better talent than Josh Rosen. But, it's gonna be interesting to see what the Bucks do. The last time I gave the Buccaneers props and showed faith in them, they let me down. So I'm not going to go on the limb and do that again this time around. So we'll just see how it goes during training camp and things of that sort.
Before we move off the coaching carousel, we'll talk about the coaches of our two respective teams that we like to follow. So we'll first talk about Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera will be brought back. But he will be making a lot of changes to his staff. So what are your feelings about David Tepper, your owner, basically giving Ron a vote of confidence, but the staff changes coming down this year?
I'm in full support of it. I think it was a good move by David Tepper. One thing he has always stressed in the time that he has been the owner and learning from being a minority owner of the Steelers and being around that environment is the word patience. And so, I mean, it's not like Ron Rivera went 2-14. They got out to a 6-2 start. They went 7-8. They showed a lot of great improvement when he took over the play calling. Eric Washington is still going to be the defensive coordinator, but he's just not going to be calling the plays. Rivera's going to be calling the plays, and I think it was a good move by Carolina keeping Rivera, because had Rivera got fired on a Black Monday or at the end of the season or on at any point, he would have been hired the very next day. And so that's how good of a coach he is. I think a lot of people were wondering, a lot of people were watching the Panthers situation. So I think it was a good job by Davis Hepburn not pulling the trigger. I applaud the staff changes. I mean, Brady Hoke was on the defensive line coach, and how does he still have a job? Does he still get jobs in football? I do not know, but he's no longer there. Um, and so I'm in full support of it. And when I did go on the tour with my grandpa to the Panther Stadium, I actually saw Ron Rivera and North Turner actually talking a lot of football. They didn't get a chance of. They're in a good conversation, so we didn't want to interrupt anything. So, but it was definitely good to know that. Uh, Good to know that this organization is going to stay stable with the coaching. And Rivera's a player's coach. He's a great coach. Like I said, we just hit a very very rough patch. I think that Steelers game kind of was the beginning of the end, and the ship just could not be right until the end. So we'll see what happens going forward. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens. I mean, Rivera proved he was a great defensive coordinator, and I think calling the plays will make them a very effective defense because they got the talent.
The Washington football team will be retaining head coach Jay Gruden. It's just a case where everybody knows that if you come to DC, you're not going to really be in charge the way you want to. So nobody wants to come. So why fire the coach you got? You might as well just, keep him there. He's had injuries, so you can always throw that up in the press to justify the reason why, he's still around. It's just going to be a case of what do they do at quarterback going forward. It doesn't look like Alex Smith is going to be anywhere near a football field in 2019. So the draft, can they keep Colt McCoy healthy for a whole season if they want to go that route? Does Josh Johnson have a chance to, win out the job in training camp? So, those would be the things to kind of watch out for. Unfortunately, the thing that most Washington football team fans want to happen is Bruce Allen getting fired. That is not going to happen. He's still going to be the head of football operations. And until that changes, this team will be very year to year in their thinking. And every 4 years, they'll probably spring up and win a division at 9-7, 10-6, and have a playoff game at home. They may win and get bounced out, when they play a better team in the divisional round. So kind of the same old hamster wheel as a Washington football fan. So no changes as of yet, but if things start off slow, I think that at this point, Dan Snyder will get back into things, and a lot of the old tactics that he used to use will come back to the forefront. And Jay Gruden may not have that much of a leash if, they, with the attendance and kind of the other problems off the field that they've encountered this year, they really need to win some football games in 2019 to kind of get people back into into wanting to even think about the Washington football team in good graces and good spirits, because it's really bad.
Oh. Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster in that tenure. Definitely. I'm sure, as a fan of the team, it's kind of getting old pretty much.
Yeah, it's getting old because there's a lot of people around the team. Like, I think that a lot of people have their ways they feel about him, but Chris Cooley is one of the smartest people, and he knows the team. And he said from day one, if they let Sean McVay go interview, he's not coming back to this team.
Wow.
He identified Sean McVay early. He identified Kyle Shanahan early. He was like, these dudes are going to make really good coaches. He was like, we need to have some foresight. It would be a move that would be bold because they're so young, but he's like, they can handle it because, they're smart. They have, they've been around football their whole life. And you don't have people like that in positions to make real moves for the team. Bruce Allen is a business politician, type of guy. He's a smoozer. He's not a football dude.
Right.
And that's where we're behind in so many areas when it comes to these other teams. We don't have football people doing football things. We got business people doing football things. And that's not going to work. And it hasn't worked for 20 years, and it won't work as long as Snyder continues to go that route. If he decides, hey, you know what, Bruce, you were good, you did some good things, whatever, but it's time for me to really give it up to a football guy and let a young football guy come in and tear us down and let us be bad, have 2, 3, and 13 seasons back to back, and really rebuild and say, Dan, hey, it's gonna be ugly for 2 seasons. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. And once we get these 2 seasons worth of ugly out of the way, then we might get 8 or 9 good seasons and 2 or 3 great ones. But we got to go through these 2 bad ones first, and nobody's ever been able to get him to understand that.
Right.
So that's where we are.
Because it's like we want to win now, but you don't want to make the sacrifice to win now.
Mm-hmm. And it takes you. And this will be my last point. They don't understand that. Don't go chasing stars. Don't go chasing people. Okay, they had this dude, Kevin Hogan. He was on the team in the preseason. He was the 3rd quarterback. He played more than Colt McCoy and Alex Smith. He played the majority of the preseason games. He looked really good. Guess what they do? Oh, because we need like 17 running backs, they cut him. Okay, 3 years ago, they draft Nate Sudfeld. He's on the team for 2 seasons. Then guess what they do coming in out of training camp? They cut him. Oh, guess what he does? Goes to Philadelphia. Guess what he did this year? Helped Philadelphia win a game so they can continue their playoff run when Foles got hurt. It's like, what are y'all doing? Kirk Cousins. Hey, guess what? He's the quarterback for your team. He may not be the best quarterback in the league. He may not do the things that you always want him to do, but he's the best freaking quarterback for your team. Go ahead and pay him this $17 million in 2016. I know it sounds crazy to give Kirk Cousins $17 million in 2016, but in 2 more years, it'll be a steal.
Right.
No, we go through the whole give the man $50 million and still don't retain him. So that's my football team, man.
Wow.
So that's a dysfunction that we're dealing with. So until the front office changes, then the trickle down will always be, the rot will always be from the head down, and the very end thing is the product on the field. And this year, the fans voiced their displeasure. There wasn't a sellout for the first time in who knows when. And yeah, so that's where we're at. All right. Spent too much time on that. We're going to move on to some basketball talk, college and NBA. So here's some major stories that have gone down since the last time we recorded. Tom Thibodeau, he was out as the coach of Minnesota Timberwolves. So, the turmoil and the in the summer and the beginning of the season of Tibbs finally comes to an end for Minnesota. Dennis Smith Jr. of the Mavs, is he on the trading block or isn't he? It's been reports that he is, then there's been reports that he isn't, then there's reports that he was again, and apparently he's rejoined the team. So I don't know if he is or isn't, but looks like the Luka Doncic train is going to run over Dennis Smith over there in Dallas. James Harden, he's in the incredible zone right now. He scored 30 points in 20 straight games. He's had 40 points. He had a 40-point stretch of like 4 or 5 games in a row there mixed in this. He's just been in another zone. Boogie Cousins, he started his first game for the Warriors. He scored 14 points. He hit 3 threes. They also fouled out in about 16 minutes. So he got all his money's worth in his first game. Carmelo Anthony has finally been traded by the Rockets to the Bulls. He's going to become a free agent once he clears waivers, and then he can sign wherever he wants to. We'll stop right here for a second. Who do you think Carmelo is going to go to? He's going to have his choice. You think he's going to try to find his way out to the Lakers?
I mean, it's possible, but do you really want to rip that like? It's really about chemistry. Where is Melo going to go where he can be himself? And maybe the Lakers is an environment for him. You know, you'll have LeBron facilitating. You got plenty of facilitators on the team. And but who does he take minutes from? Does he take minutes from Ingram? Does he take minutes from Kuzma? Which likely he will not. But it's gonna. I don't know who's gonna take the minutes from, but it is highly. I think the Lakers are probably the destination. I haven't really looked at who is available.
My two places would be the Lakers or the Heat. Because the Heat are right there on the edge of the playoffs right now, and they're down. What's my point guard's name? Dragic. He's out. Yeah, he's out. So they definitely need some more scoring. So
yeah,
and Wade's down there, so it'd be another friend that he could pair up with. It didn't work out with Chris Paul, but that's just because it didn't work out with D'Antoni in New York, and I don't know why they thought it was going to work out with D'Antoni in Houston. It's not like D'Antoni,
right? Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think that was my kind of thing. Like, why would you go to Houston though? You had these issues prior, so yeah. So I think that I could see probably I could agree with those two. Definitely Miami, especially they need scoring and who knows how long Dragic is going to be out, and they need that definitely.
Right. Some college basketball news. Duke, they suffered a loss at home as number 1 to an unranked Syracuse team. Trey Jones, the point guard for Duke, went out within like the first 7 minutes of this game. And my theory that I've been telling folks all season kind of proved to be true is I think that you can play 2-3 zone against Duke, make them shoot, and make Zion Williams, have to come over a couple of guys' backs to get offensive rebounds. You can get him in foul trouble, and they don't have a lot of really, knockdown shooters. They got guys who can get streaky and hit a few in a row, but they don't have that, oh, don't leave him open type of guy. And Syracuse went in there and they shocked them.
And I think though that was a very great game, very interesting game, in the fact that when I looked at this, I was watching with the raised eyebrow. I was like, okay, Syracuse in this game, are they gonna falter? But they got some guys who are really gritty, who really battle it out, and those guys made a huge difference. I want to say Tyus Battle is one of them. the way he willed that team, through regulation, through overtime, and I think the zone did create problems for Duke. I mean, if you either go zone or a box of one or triangle on the two, it will do some damage for a lot of these athletes. And I think not being able to see a zone, like seeing a zone and wondering like how do you solve it, they had a tough time trying to figure that out.
Steve Alford, he got fired as a UCLA coach. They had a slow start to their season. They took a bad loss, and he got the heave ho. So there's going to be a good job with an opening coming up at the end of the season. A lot of people are kind of earmarking Rick Pitino. That's where he might show back up. So look out for who's going to be, some names and candidates for the UCLA job at the end of the season. And Tennessee, they are the new number one team in the nation. Rick Barnes moved around from one football league to another one, but he's accomplished getting a basketball team in that league to number one, the same as he did with Texas, and now he's done the same thing with Tennessee. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle the bullseye on their back, because in college basketball, that is the mark to get knocked off is the new number one.
Well, it's so funny. I had a coworker tell me Michigan was going to be number one, and I'm like, they're going to Wisconsin. They're going to Wisconsin. He said on Friday, this past Friday, they were going to be number one. I'm like, they're going to Wisconsin on Saturday. That is not. I don't care how good or bad the Badgers are. Madison is a tough place to play at, and sure enough, Michigan lost. So, needless to say, he got trolled pretty much the whole day for that. So, um, do I think Tennessee's going to respond as the number one? They almost lost to Alabama. They almost didn't even make it to number one. So, um, we'll just have to see how, like you said, how well they handle the target on their back. I don't. I think I think they'll probably slip up at a certain point. To who they slip up against, I do not know. Um, I do know they were up 12 against Alabama. Alabama had the lead briefly, and this was at home at that. And then they found a way to get the win. Um, and then they do have a game at Nashville against Vanderbilt um, tomorrow night. So Vandy will probably be the game probably be sold out at Memorial Gym, and Vandy will probably come out and get their best shot. And then West Virginia, they play West Virginia comes to Knoxville on Saturday, part of the SEC Big 12 Challenge, which also College Game Day will be in Lexington, Kentucky for Kansas and Kentucky.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting matchup. It looks like Kentucky is starting to hit their stride a little bit. Their guys are starting to get some experience, and Cal is starting to kind of figure them out. Before we move off of college basketball and talk about some baseball really fast, give an assessment of what you're seeing out of Kansas. They took a tough loss to West Virginia over the weekend, but they bounced back, got a win at home against Iowa State. So what do you
Revenge game.
What do you see from the Jayhawks right now?
Well, there's a log jam at the Big 12 right now. So I think what I'm seeing from Kansas is that as long as they win at home, is the Big 12 will still go through Lawrence because, yeah, they lost at Iowa State, they lost at West Virginia. Texas Tech, who's been picked by many to dethrone Kansas and their streak, um, they've played. They've lost two in a row. They lost against Iowa State at home, and then they lost at Baylor over the weekend. So, with that being said, I think with Kansas, though, they're still trying to figure things out, especially without Doak in the middle, who's been done for the season with the wrist injury. So they're trying to figure figure themselves out in terms of the identity that they want to go in. I think also with the um, uh, Sylvia De Souza situation, will he come back? Will he not? Will he come back? Will he be eligible? Um, what's the NCAA doing? Of course, with all the black cloud hanging around that situation. That's something we'll talk about later on. But I think so far, once they start to figure it out in February, I think it'll be something they'll build off of and move forward with.
All right. So, our last segment, we're going to talk about a little bit of baseball as the new class of the 2019 Hall of Fame was just announced. We have 4 members elected. We had Mariano Rivera. He received 100% of the vote, the first player ever in the history of the Hall of Fame to be a unanimous choice. We had Roy Halladay, Mike Mussina, and Edgar Martinez. So 4 very deserving candidates and guys to get in. Glad that Edgar Martinez got in. One of the most feared designated hitters of the generation at the time. Good to see him and Harold Baines get in back to back. So Mike Mussina as well, big Orioles fan growing up. So seen a lot of games that Mike Mussina pitched. He lost this year, big ones, but for the longevity of the career, definitely worthy. Roy Halladay pitched the best game I've ever seen in the playoffs. No hitter when the Phillies went on to win the World Series. Just dominant. Unfortunately, that this will be a posthumous induction. And then, of course, like we said, the Sandman, Mariano Rivera, the best to ever do it when it comes to closing out games. Really, he only had one hiccup in the postseason. That was when the Arizona Diamondbacks got to him. But other than that, once Mo Rivera stepped out there, you started gathering your stuff up, especially when the Yankees were at home and getting ready to hear New York, New York. So,
yeah. I will say that, Mariano Rivera, definitely the greatest closer ever. Like, and this is an era where growing up as a kid before Rivera was Lee Smith, but Mariano Rivera was on a whole nother level and definitely well deserving of this unanimous vote. All the inductees are very deserving. I would say it's definitely, once again, it's one of those things where you definitely appreciate what you were able to witness, in your prime, in your younger years and in your prime years. So it's definitely wonderful to grow up and watch these guys, make it to where they are.
Yeah. So congratulations again to Mariano Rivera, Roy Halladay, Mike Mussina, and Edgar Martinez for being inducted into this year's Baseball Hall of Fame. So, Dwayne, at this point, man, open it up to you for your shout outs, thank yous, and all that good stuff.
Shout out to all the listeners. Shout out to you, Don. Much love. Shout out to Jesse and Nubias, always part of the family. And then also, shout out to Liverpool, still maintaining their grip on the Premier League. And then, Manchester City's right there. But a lot of people wondering if it's going to be the end of the 29-year drought. Liverpool has won a Premier League title since 1990. But they have had one great season so far. Still plenty of soccer left to play, especially with the rest of the Premier League season. Manchester United is coming up. They have been great since letting go of Jose Mourinho. And then also, let's talk about domestic footy as well in terms of MLS. They revamped their whole playoff format where the top seed gets a bye, and then there'll be other. I want to say it's the top 7 that get in, and it's a single elimination format. So definitely every round's a knockout round. The top seed, the conference champions in the East and West get a bye. And this is probably going to be the format going forward, especially being that there's now 26 teams. Yeah, 25 teams in the MLS now with the addition of FC Cincinnati. Nashville's getting a team. Austin's now getting a team. So there's about 1 to 3 spots left. I think Major League Soccer wants to go for 28 to 30. David Tepper, Panthers owner, was also talking about bringing that MLS team to the Carolinas as well. So we'll see what happens there.
All right. I'd like to thank Dwayne for joining me. I'd like to thank all the listeners for listening to Know the Score. Thank you for bearing with us. We haven't been as consistent as we'd like to be, but we're still going to try to put out these shows as often as we can. Please head over to Amazon.com, do some shopping with them, help keep the podcast free. Go through CSPN.us, click on the podcast that says keep our podcast free at the top of the page. After you click on that tab, click on Amazon, do your shopping as you normally would, help support the podcast. You can also support the podcast by becoming a member of our Patreon page. You get exclusive podcasts when you sign up on patreon.com/CSPN Media. Sign up for a Backstage Pass. You'll get exclusive content only on Patreon, some good interviews, some behind the scenes podcasts and things like that. So a lot of good stuff over on the Patreon page as well. So please support the CSPN. Remember to, rate and review, give us feedback, subscribe to the podcast as well. We greatly appreciate everybody listening and downloading each and every podcast here on the network. So for my co-host, the Libra Icon, I'm your host, Don Delarente, and now you know the score. All right, buddy. I appreciate you.
No problem.
So I'll go through and edit this down a little bit later. I got to go cook and watch some wrestling.
Yeah, I've been catching up, so I'm almost there. And then I'm going to continue catching up with WWE. Then I'm going to binge NXT, so I'll be ready for this weekend.
Yeah, got to get it in. I've got 4 days of work at the arena in a row, so I'm actually going to have to try to cram in all the wrestling I need to see just to do the podcast on Thursday. I got to work Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Royal Rumble live. Yeah, I'm going to miss Royal Rumble live. I'm going to miss Raw. I'm going to miss SmackDown. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to feel all this in. I'm going to have to be sick for work or something.
That'll be all right.
Yeah, man. But have a good evening, man.
All right, you too.
All right, man. I'll try to DM you and we'll get the chance to record the next one. Shouldn't be too much news going on between this week and next week, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to work more earlier in the day anyway, so I'll keep you updated.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
All right, man. Have a good evening.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.